Some sad news to bring you from La Liga, where Saturday's match between Barcelona and Osasuna has been postponed to a later date following the death of first-team doctor Carles Miñarro Garcia. The Catalan club put out the following statement, quote, FC Barcelona is sorry to announce the sad news of the death of first-team doctor Carles Miñarro Garcia this Saturday afternoon. As a result, the game between FC Barcelona and CA Osasuna has been postponed until a later date. The FC Barcelona board of directors and players wish to express their utmost sympathy to the family and friends of the deceased and join them in mourning at such a difficult time, end quote. Garcia was 40 years old. And to give us a little bit more context about this story, delighted to say we're joined by Phil Kitromilides, who's a Spanish football expert. Phil, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit more details? Obviously, we've had the statement there from the club, but any more information that's come to you about how this has happened?
Well, Carles Miñarro, obviously someone who was very close to the first team. I think it's something that we should underline here. Very, very close to the first team. That's why this suspension has been asked for at this late stage as well. Someone who was in contact on a daily basis with the first team of Barcelona, and someone whose death has affected the first team squad incredibly deeply and sufficiently for them to request for this suspension. So he died sometime this afternoon. The news broke relatively recently, relatively shortly before kickoff. We didn't have any kind of inkling that something like this was going to happen until about 30 minutes before the game was scheduled. But yeah, it's incredibly sad. And as you mentioned in your introduction, just 40 years of age as well. An extremely tragic piece of news that has obviously affected the first team in such a way that they've had to ask for the postponement of this game, which has naturally been afforded to them. It's something that they wouldn't do this lightly. Let's put it like this. This is something that it's a big thing to postpone a La Liga match. It's a big thing for Barcelona to postpone a home game. It's a very packed schedule, a very difficult schedule, but this is obviously something that is much more important than football, essentially. So they've obviously been obliged to seek this postponement, and it was the only thing that they could do once this news broke.
Phil, obviously we saw some of the players had already arrived, or the team had already arrived at the stadium. Obviously, they received that news there at the stadium. That's a huge blow to them. What kind of support is being offered to them by the club, by the league, having to deal with the situation, obviously, just minutes before they were supposed to play a football match?
Well, the first thing is that the game has been suspended, and I think that's the biggest amount of support that the league can offer, saying that you don't have to go out and play this game minutes after receiving this devastating news. I mean, I think it's worth putting into context that, you know, the first team doctor will have had daily contact with a lot of these players, someone who would have been an absolute daily member of their lives. So for them to receive the news that he's no longer with us is, as you can understand, absolutely devastating. So the fact that they don't have to go out and play this game is obviously a bonus for them. Understandable that anyone basically with any kind of heart wouldn't let these players go out and play. Someone who they've been very, very close to is no longer with us. They simply can't play. But you talk about the support and the ability to grieve and to get over this loss. It's a really packed schedule. I mean, they've got games every 3 days, more or less, massive games as well. They've got the Champions League. They've got a game against Atletico Madrid coming up. They've got Catalan derbies against Espanyol and Girona as well. You can see that there on your screen. It's a really, really packed schedule. So I guess the minimum that they could expect was to not have to play tonight, having received this really devastating news.
Do we have any idea, Phil, where this game might fit in? If we look past these games that are coming up, is there a gap that potentially they could put this game in?
honestly, at the moment, I don't know what to say to you in terms of dates, but I will give you the fact that on Monday night we also had a game postponed in La Liga because of the weather. Villarreal against Espanyol was called off just minutes before kickoff because of adverse weather conditions, and that is being rescheduled for more or less a month's time. So they will try and find somewhere to fit this game in, but it is a really packed schedule, as we said, with Barcelona involved in the Copa del Rey, in the Champions League, and in La Liga as well. So it's difficult for them to find somewhere to fit this in. But I think within a month or so is the likely conclusion.
Obviously, news and stories like this are far more important than football. But when we look at the La Liga title race, potentially this could affect the players as they go into this hugely important period, and with it all being so close with the two Madrid sides to win the title.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it feels difficult to talk about football and to talk about the La Liga title race when a young man has lost his life today, and in really tragic circumstances. But I think Barcelona players and the staff involved with the club will be desperate to try and pick up as many points and win the title for Carles. But tonight they could have gone 4 points clear at the top of the table because Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid aren't playing until tomorrow. So it would have been an opportunity for them to open up a bit of a gap, with Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid both having Madrid derbies tomorrow, local tough derbies against Getafe and Rayo Vallecano respectively. This could have been an opportunity for Barcelona to go 4 points clear at the top, but obviously they're not playing tonight. But yeah, the La Liga title race is extremely close and extremely tight, and it's the title race that we haven't seen for a while. We haven't seen three teams separated by so few points at this stage of the season for a while. And this tragic event has just added another element to it, I guess, with Barcelona having to not play tonight and find another way to play this game.
You follow the Barcelona closely, obviously, you're around that team. How important will the veteran leadership of the manager, Hansi Flick, be for this young squad that obviously is now dealing with this trauma? Like we mentioned, so many young players. It has to help to have a manager and a leader as Hansi Flick to help them get through this and support them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And, it's difficult. Grief and loss is a very personal thing, and people deal with it in a different way. Individually, but if you have someone like Hansi Flick, who has been around, he's 60, he's been around in football, he's been around in the world for a long time, he will be well placed to be able to try and deal with this loss on a personal level and try and help the squad to overcome this really big loss. It is a big loss on a personal level, on a logistical level. This was someone who was a core member of the medical staff, as I said, someone who would have had daily treatment with all of the players. But yeah, you're right. Having someone like Hansi Flick on board, someone who's extremely experienced, will definitely help. But as I also said, grief is and loss, how you deal with it, is a very individual thing. So we'll see how the Barcelona team and the squad bounce back from this massive and crushing and desperately sad loss.
Yes, and Phil, well said. Our thoughts go out to the family of Carles Miñarro Garcia. Thanks so much for joining us and giving us your insight as well. Just a reminder of the statement from Barcelona. They said FC Barcelona is sorry to announce the sad news of the death of first-team doctor Carles Miñarro Garcia this Saturday afternoon. As a result, the game between FC Barcelona and CA Osasuna has been postponed until a later date. The FC Barcelona board of directors and players wish to express their utmost sympathy to the family and friends of the deceased and join them in mourning at such a difficult time. Garcia was 40 years old.